I am Trey Pendragon. I work for Princeton, and important for this presentation, I'm the technical lead for Valkyrie. So here's what we're going to do. Valkyrie is a pretty small library, so I get to do things like spend a long time telling you what it is and why it exists. And then I will talk about what happened this year, and then what we're going to do next, and how you might be able to help. So what is Valkyrie? I was a lot more poetic last year, but to be more succinct, it's a Ruby gem that lets you save to multiple backends in the same code base with the same API. Right now, it lets you save to Postgres, to Fedora 4, 5, and 6 in memory, as well as Solar. And it lets you save bits in Fedora 4, 5, and 6 on disk. And there are plugins to let you save anywhere that Shrine will let you save, which is usually like S3 or Google Cloud or various other things like that. Why might you care what Valkyrie is? Again, much more poetic last year, but it's feeling like a more concrete sort of year to me. It's the only Ruby library right now that lets you save resources to Fedora 5 and 6 in a way that you can like look at the properties in a reasonable Ruby looking way. So if you're interested in Fedora 5 and 6, Fedora 5 maybe for stability or Fedora 6 for OCFL, this is kind of the way. Number two, Hyrax is using it right now, and will shortly hopefully be able to save to a variety of adapters. Number three, and personally important to me, you get to use Postgres if you want. And number four, it helps you escape some awkward problems when using Active Fedora. I'm not going to go super far into this, but there has been in the past some like a few issues that after you use Active Fedora for long enough, you find are sort of hard to get around, which you just don't have to deal with here. Okay. So great, Trey. You've told me that I have to use this. So what is my code going to look like? On the left, this is a very old table and still looks the same. So on the left, you'll see sort of what it looks like in Active Fedora. And on the right, you'll see what it might look like in Valkyrie. The important piece here is that in Active Fedora, and it looks kind of like ActiveRecord, you'll do a lot of like calling find on the class method or calling persistence on an instance of a thing. And it will sort of act the way that you expect it to act. The difference in Valkyrie is that you'll instead pass parameters to metadata adapters, and you'll kind of pass around this representation of your data, which we call a Valkyrie resource. That sort of flexibility of passing it to that adapter means that that adapter could be going anywhere, and it could in fact be persisting to multiple places at the same time, or a variety of other patterns that are only really enabled when you're not locking persistence with your metadata. I'm going to try to answer a few questions that I get a lot. If I were looking at that table and people have looked at that table before and said, that's quite a lot of typing, Trey. I agree. It is quite a lot of typing. It's much more verbose. I will say that more typing means that there's less abstraction. It's a little bit more flexible. And separating persistence from the record is the best way to let you migrate that record across data stores. One thing I hear a lot is, well, I have no intention of changing my data store. And I say that's likely true, but in repositories, we do persist to multiple places quite a lot. There's the primary data store, there's the index. We often have a preservation storage format, which you can represent as a Valkyrie adapter. And we have to do things often that are like, I want to upgrade from Fedora 4 to 5 to 6, for instance. And letting you have all of those data stores be persistable and representable in your application at the same time means that you can write code in your application to migrate between those. in some flexible way. Number 3, there are people who have written record.find and save, which just pulls up like a default metadata adapter. You could totally do that. I think you'll regret it. If you have a genius idea about making this API look a little nicer, I'd be happy to talk about that sort of thing. All right, quick overview of the architecture, just so that you know kind of what you're getting into when you look at this kind of stuff. Every adapter has a metadata adapter with a query service. These are like canned queries that will give me resources back. And there's a persister, which I pass resources to and will save it to my data store. On the side are change sets, which sort of manage everything that is not, it's kind of not just built into a Valkyrie resource. These are things like dirty attribute tracking or things to make simple form work or validations. On the side are storage adapters, which lets you save bits to Fedora 4, 5, and 6 in the cloud and on disk as well as in memory. So I want to talk about a couple of questions I get pretty often. Some people say this looks a lot like Hanami or Ruby Object Mapper or stuff like that. I say that's definitely true. I've tried just using those libraries in the past and found that I was unable to map our use cases to those libraries. If somebody finds a way to do that and they like it a lot more, I would love to see that. I think that would be a great presentation and I'd be happy to talk about it. Another thing I get is if you're going to save to Postgres, why not just use ActiveRecord? I will say that the metadata adapter that saves to Postgres that ships with Valkyrie just uses ActiveRecord. But why is there all this API layer? And I will say that there are institutions that need to support Fedora or need to support other arbitrary formats. And Active Fedora's implementation was build an ActiveRecord-esque library so that things look familiar. And it served us well for a long time, but it's pretty hard to maintain. So if that is hard to maintain, then how is Valkyrie going to be easier to maintain? And our way of moving towards that is to have these 4 principles. Make it easy to support your technology of choice, translated to it's easy to write a new adapter. Use the smallest amount of code you can. Use external dependencies with their own communities. So leverage code bases that are outside our own community. And make sure that if people are going to be building adapters or things like that, that we provide a set of specs that you can run programmatically to make sure that your adapter matches the same specifications as every other adapter. So we ship a suite of shared specs that you can easily run against your adapter, as well as the ones that you just include inside your app to make sure that they work. All right, so that is what happened, or that's sort of what it is. So what happened this year? We are sort of at the stage where we're fixing just weird edge cases and making things faster, which is a good stage to be at. So Solr indexing performance is significantly faster. We recently pushed write-only adapters. So sometimes, especially in the case of indexing, I just want to shove a representation inside a data store and I don't care about how it comes back out. So if I don't care about how it comes back out, then I don't have to map the Solr output to a Valkyrie resource. So all that code just doesn't happen. So it's faster. And then we fix some race conditions when you save a resource, you pull a resource out, some other process deletes it, and then your process finishes and it saves. Previously, it would have recreated that resource, and now it just won't happen. And everything except for Fedora, because Fedora was very nicely throwing a tombstone error. What's going to happen next? Valkyrie 3.0. There are some improvements to file handles management. There's some dependency updates. Draper will no longer be a dependency. And some old deprecations are going to get removed. I released this last night. So 3.0.0.beta 1 is out now. Try it out. There should not be much that you have to do in order to get it to run. How you can help? I would say right now the biggest impact you can have is to reach out to the Hyrax team to sort of work with them to complete the migration of Valkyrie. You can ask about it in Slack and Dev, or even in the Connect channel. We're all very friendly. We accept any and all help, and we will help you get sort of acclimated. Yeah. I wanted to leave a quick thanks. These are all of the committers and issue creators that I was quickly able to find. And if you want to get a hold of us, the easiest place is we have a Slack channel named Valkyrie. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Trey. We have several comments in the Slack channel, but we also have a question in the Q&A. For the recording, if you like, I can just read that loud. Sure. Is there going to be a native backup restore module built into Hyrax Valkyrie for data?
Oh, that's interesting. We don't have a ticket for that. If you're asking about if there's going to be like a way to preserve the combination of my data and my binary content, we have that in Princeton's repository, a sort of standard way to do that, but we haven't shipped that with the gem. If you're just asking, is there a standard way to ship between one data store and another data store, that is just pull it out of the query service of one adapter and put it into the persister of another one. There's not really any code to write.